Hospitality and service are not the same. Service is about the repetitive technical routines we go through during shift, meant to create a smoother experience for our guests. For example, clearing empty glasses, pouring water, serving drinks, cleaning the bar. All of those are examples for good service. Hospitality, on the other hand, it's more about the welcoming, the entertainment of guests. It's about our interactions with our guests and about the way to make them feel more comfortable and secure. Hospitality is a custom noted in some cultures more than others. For example, you've got Southern hospitality in the southern states of the US, which is about accepting strangers, although historically it's been involved at the expense of slavery and prejudice. Bedouins are famous for their hospitality and their ability giving a stranger their best, even at dire times, and even at their own expense.
Now, whereas good service might go unnoticeable, as we said, the smooth experience, you might not feel the waiter at all. Good hospitality requires a lot of interaction, requires a lot of hard work, which is why bars might focus more on training their bartenders in cocktail development or in technical service, rather than maybe training the bartenders to be more hospitable. However, you've probably all heard these things before, and we are not going to talk about them today. We want to get creative with hospitality rather than repeat the same things heard over and over again. So I want us to do a little bit, we're just going to relax a little bit. All right? I want everybody to release your shoulders from your ears, remove the tongue from the top of your mouth, stretch your arms and legs, open your hands forward. All right? Take a deep breath with me. These are all stress signals we seem to hold on without even noticing. We're just being full of anxiety within ourselves. That's just not helpful for this conversation. My name is Oron. For the past 5 years, I've been either a lead bartender or bar owner, which basically means that I've been working 24/7 for the last 5 years. I've had 0 breaks. This is literally my first vacation since. Now, as a bar owner, I developed a sort of habit. I found my love for cigars and rum, and I would Irish handcuff myself to cigars and rum. You guys know what an Irish handcuff is? Anybody knows? Anybody heard that? Come on. So if you have 2 glasses of beer, 1 in each hand, you're Irish handcuffed to these beers. You can't put them down until you drink them. So I would do the same to myself, just with cigar on the one hand and a glass of rum on the other. And with that situation, you cannot do any work. You cannot write on the computer, because the ashes are just going to fall on the keyboard. You cannot answer the phone, because you'll either burn your hair or put some expensive rum on you. You're basically stuck in that situation until the cigar is over or until you run out of rum. Tends to happen. And you have to spend 40 minutes to 2 hours just thinking, just wondering.
My name is Guy, and today, except for creative hospitality, I would like to share with you one of my biggest fears. Ever since I was a kid, I'm afraid of dogs. I admit, not many can relate to that, but that's my story. So I've got 2 scars on my legs because of dog attacks happened to me in my childhood. And the newest prank at the Imperial Crew is coming in the morning when they know that I'm in the bar, locking the door with a dog inside, and then run to the security cameras and check out my response. So I'm using this stage to tell you, Oron, never again. Please stop. But now let's go back to creative hospitality and the reason why we're here. So basically, I don't know if you noticed it or not, but when you walked into the venue, there was background noise playing, like traffic noise. The lighting were off, and we were talking in a bit like angry, fast-paced kind of mood, more than our current one. And basically wanted to demonstrate the first aspect we would like to share with you tonight: changing vibes. When a guest walks into the bar, he's coming with his own emotional state. Now, we don't know what it is. It could be good or bad, happy, sad, but And we even don't know what caused it in the first place. But we do know one thing. We know that our aim is to improve it, make it memorable and pleasant. So when a guest walks into the bar, let's say after he had a rough day, he had a crazy taxi driver experience, and now he's in the bar, so we can understand that he might be a bit angry. We need to let him blow some steam, relax for a second, sit down, and then he can open the next chapter of his night. We need to let our guests let go of their daily baggage in order for them to open up towards new experiences. Leading to a changing vibes, we create a journey together with the guests, and then they can start feeling those feelings. So, in order for us to change vibe, we came up with a few manners and things we would like to attend. For example, contrast. The broader the difference between out and in, the more this effect is felt. And I want to show you an example. The Imperial Bar, which is maybe the most famous bar in Tel Aviv, is located within this hotel, which is, no offense to anyone, but it's like an old, low-grade kind of hotel which you only stay in if you've got no other option. And when you get to that hotel and you need to walk through that lobby, you refuse to believe that there might be a famous cocktail bar within this kind of place. However, when you walk inside and you see a well-designed bar, you bathe in that well-designed bar and then later refuse to leave because that requires another walk through that lobby. Another way to emphasize the differences between our bar and other bar is music, for example. The choice of music, the volume of it, the style of it. If it's different than in other bars, then people will understand the contrast. The contrast increases. Also, between the outside of the street and the inside of the bar. All of those only contribute to the contrast.
So as the guests walk through this horrible lobby into the bar, their expectations is a little shaken. They start to rebuild their fantasy, their expectations as to how this night is going to look like. The next step, or the next part in changing vibes, is about feeding that fantasy. Finding little clues, little hints that will make that guest think that they are indeed entering their fantasy. They are indeed entering what they think might's going to happen. We use little clues to do that, like the way staff is dressed, the way they behave, the way they talk. Using specific phrases and manners will help convince the guests that they are in a different setting than they were expecting. And turning it into a part of the story that they are experiencing now. For example, formal evening attire. Now, Tel Aviv is very hot and very humid. But a bartender in formal attire will immediately get a guest to think that they are in an absolutely different part of the world. They wouldn't think they're in Tel Aviv anymore. Assisting this with classical language. Think about the difference between "What's up, y'all" and "Good evening, sir." And if you call a guest "Good evening, sir" in that setting, they will adapt their behavior to fit that fantasy of them being a sir. They will act more gentlemanly. Other examples would be avoiding using negative influence words such as but, no, none, and especially avoiding using the phrase "no problem." It's supposed to be a positive thing, but it uses two horrible words, no and problem. And we know that whenever we use these words, the guest takes a step back into his comfort zone. He distances himself from us just because of the negative influence of those words. Another great widespread example of that is calling them guests instead of calling them customers, thus changing the entire way we look at the experience. Now, a third aspect of changing vibes is the interaction that happens when you enter the bar. Now, in many bars, the first person you walk in and meet is someone we'll call the host or hostess. And these people, the hostess, usually confronts the guest as soon as they walk in with one of the most identity-crushing questions you can imagine. Have you made a reservation? This puts the guest immediately in a position of discomfort. Should I have made a reservation? What happens if I hadn't? Will I not get seated? The question is absolutely horrible in terms of advancing guest experience the way we see it. Now, we wanted to change that. We wanted to get our hostesses to stop using that question, but the question is, in fact, the easiest way for them to do their job. They need to find out if you have a reservation or not. So the way we did this, we've instigated a game with our hostesses where they cannot ask the direct question. They must ask roundabout questions about any and all issues to try to get the guests to tell them if they have a reservation or not. Now, if they have a reservation, they will tell you. That's not a problem. But we don't want you to ask that direct question. How do you do that? You ask other personal questions. Will anyone be joining you? Will anyone be joining you? Have you been with us before? Are we celebrating anything? Now, seeing as we also have a reservation list, a smart use of the social media allows the hostess to recognize the guests even before they introduce themselves. As soon as they walk in the door, hello, Yael and Carmi, very nice of you to come in. We were expecting you. Think about the very disarming effect of being recognized at the bar at the first time you walk in. Now, after that short discussion, a short talk with the hostess, she'll have some information about who the guests are. She will lead them to their seats. We don't send them to the seats because, again, the bar is an uncomfortable area. Instead, we lead them to the seats. And before they sit down, the hostess will use that few bits of information she has to introduce the bartender to the guest and the guest to the bartender. Now, she doesn't need to give all the information she has, just a little bit of a hook. Guys, this is Asaf, he'll be your bartender. He joined us from South Africa a couple of years ago. Asaf, this is Mayan and Carmi. Carmi spends a lot of time grooming his beard. And suddenly the bartender and the guests have a little bit of a conversation starter that is a little bit more advanced, a little easier than it would have been otherwise without that introduction. Their communication starts on a more friendly level right from the beginning, right from the start of their experience. Now, this was a description of the ideal for us, but we encountered some problems and we just couldn't get guests to participate, to take their part in this sort of ritual of entering the bar. And the issue is we were missing something to get that ritual to happen smoothly. The reason was we were missing out on our guests' stories, or why stories matter. So this couple walks through the door and they immediately say, I have a reservation, Danny. They seem in a rush to seat, so the host leads them to their seats where they ask already to be seated elsewhere. I don't know why. As soon as they're seated, their first interaction was something like, it's very dark in here, and can you do something about this cold? As they were seated, they moved the chairs around them in a manner that we had to ask them to undo just so we could seat more guests at the bar. They haven't read the menu, instead opted to just talk. He doesn't drink cocktails. He thinks they're girly. So he orders a beer, but is disappointed with our beer selection. She asks for a sweet and sour vodka-based drink, doesn't care for the details as long as it's cool. I don't know what cool means. I gave her a fruity vodka gimlet style drink, but she said he wasn't cool enough, although she will drink it anyway. After browsing the food menu, they decided they have nothing to eat here, and after sitting for less than 30 minutes, they paid the bill and left, almost forgetting to leave a tip.
Now, we need to understand that there are two sides to each and every story. And I would like to tell you my side. My name is Danny. I'm new to this town. I just moved into the city a few months ago. I don't have a job yet, so money is a little short at the moment. And I've got a second date tonight with a woman I like. It's the first time ever I made reservations for a bar. I heard it's a very good bar, so they told me to reserve ahead, but I never done it before. As we arrived, I saw people waiting outside. So I wanted to make sure that we got seated fast. So I went there and approached the host. We didn't get much to talk on the taxi on the way in because of that first meeting awkwardness. So I wanted to break the ice as soon as possible with my date. But as soon as we entered the bar, the entire crew was about talking to us instead of letting us talk to each other. I wanted to try a cocktail, but I was afraid to appear inexperienced to my date, who I know likes to take photos of her cocktails and food. So instead, I asked for a beer. I haven't recognized any of the brands that they had. Now, her cocktail was good. It was pretty tasty, but it wasn't exciting. The presentation wasn't like too crazy. It had no garnish or something, but it was okay. Basically, we just didn't feel welcome. We haven't thought that that's the way the place is going to be. So we used the excuse of not finding anything on the food menu in order for us to leave. After having only one cocktail and one beer, the bill seemed pretty high to me. So I left out that I could afford. And then she reminded me to leave the tip.
So you see, stories matter. Now, every guest has their own story. That story explains their choices, their preferences, their behavior. The first reason stories matter is because knowing the story allows us to better attend to our guests, to better understand their needs. And remembering there's always a story helps us avoid being judgmental, probably one of the worst cases, worst issues when it comes to hospitality, judgmental. So how would a bartender who knows stories matter and knows there's a story behind every choice the guest makes would react to the same situation? Quite possibly like this. So this couple walks in the door. They seem anxious to sit, but are choosy when it comes to where. They must be a little nervous. I didn't leave them to find the menus on their own. Instead, approached them at the start, welcomed them warmly, and complimented on the guy's cool shirt. A good compliment is a great icebreaker. Now, knowing they were a little nervous, I said, take your time. Let me know if you need any help. Call me by my name. The guy said he doesn't drink cocktails, but drinks beer. So I offered a beer cocktail and said that if he wouldn't like it, I'll happily replace it with just a beer. So he should feel safe to try something new. The girl asked for a sweet and sour vodka-based drink to make it look cool. I asked her, what does cool mean? She said, I'm not sure. Just make it look good. So I served her a vodka-style gimlet drink, but in a tiki manner with a lot of garnishes. So after the initial tasting and approval of drinks, I asked them how they know each other and learned that this is their second date. He's new in the city. He just moved in. And this is their first time at a cocktail bar. So I made sure to give them little tastings of every colorful cocktail we served that night. Now, although they left an average tip, I have a feeling they enjoyed their time and might come back soon.
So for all of this story and for all of those reasons, you can understand that stories do matter. Because they allow us to create and to identify with our guests, to create an emotional connection with them, and to be able to understand their experiences rather than just judge them from a distance. You know, every bartender has stories detailing the bar and the drink, and every guest has stories that explain his behavior and attitude. So we would like to share these stories together, hearing those stories, and then when the guest feels comfortable and secure, he's able to experience new adventures, because he doesn't see us anymore as distant servers, but he sees us in a friendly manner. He thinks of us as friends. So now that that emotional connection was created, we are now in a position in which we can share stories together and create new stories between the bar, between the bartender to the guest. And then it becomes, at which point, the third topic of today's conversation, long-lasting relationship. Now, long-lasting relationship doesn't mean the less mature, but the one that encourages both the bartender and especially the guest to come back time and again. Now, we're not talking about coming for the same exact experience over and over again. We're talking about the renewed exploration of further stories and culinary adventures. You see, we aspire to have these long-lasting relationships with our guests because they are turning our guests to be ambassadors of goodwill for our bar and for the story.
Now, for those of you who are going to say, my bar serves mostly tourists, we don't do regulars, we don't need that, I want to tell you a story about a specific bar that to get to, you're going to have to buy a plane ticket going through Hartsfield-Jackson Airport in Atlanta, Georgia. The bar's called One Flew South. Has anybody been there before? Anybody? Good. You guys are all going to find the time and visit that bar. Now, it's an airport bar. The only way to get there is booking a flight with a connection through that airport. But through high standards of hospitality, service, and product quality, they've created a large group of returning guests who will book flights with connections through Atlanta just for the pleasure of visiting that bar. Even if these guests only arrive once a year, they will serve as bar ambassadors for the bar for the rest of the year, when they share their positive experiences with their friends, with their family, much as I'm doing now, sharing with you. Now, as a side note, this is another great example of the contrast in changing vibes. A yearly visit is such a rare thing that it emphasizes the positivity, the uniqueness of a positive experience, of a great experience at that bar, thus turning this alleged disadvantage that a guest might visit only once a year into an advantage, making his experience that much more memorable.
A 3 Michelin-starred restaurant is considered to be a destination worthy the trip on its own. By doing such things, we aim to become a destination on its own for our bar. You know, we would like to be the reason for that trip. We do this in several different ways that we came up with, other than just saying to the bartenders, be friendly to your guests and have long-lasting relationships. So we came up with a few ways that eventually could help us to achieve that kind of thing. By raising your hand, how many of you know the eye color of the person sitting to your right? 2 hands, maybe?
Don't check now.
Okay. How many of you know whether this person is right-handed or left-handed? Okay, a bit better. So we came up with something that we started to do, which is the end of shift report. This report is something that the bartender has to fill for only one guest or a couple during a shift. This report is filled on only one couple or a guest because to keep details of each and every guest might turn out to be a very challenging request working in a bar, especially if it's big. But starting with just one could help us to achieve this kind of behavior from the bartender towards all of his guests. And then, when he starts, he will act the same. So, the report includes eye color, which is not a crucial detail at all, except for the fact that it ensures that the bartender and the guest looked at each other's eyes. It was registered. Hand preferences, left or right, it's not important as well. But it shows that the bartender noticed how the guest holds their drink, how he refers to that drink. And then you can go on and ask yourselves another questions, which are maybe more relevant to the story. Past experiences at our bar, choice of drinks, everyday habits, personal preferences, place that they like, and such. All this information is later typed into the bar system as organizational memory, which we can share with our team and the bartenders in the bar. Therefore, we create a memory that is actually a sequence between visits. It's not only the same experience over and over again, but something new that develops together.
Some of you might look at this report and panic. How am I supposed to fill that in? I'm not sure I know how to get that information. So part of creative hospitality was also developing techniques for training in conversation skills. Various techniques, various conversation skills. We won't go into much details with that, but since it's unfair to talk about conversation skills without giving at least one, I'm going to share with you one of my personal favorites. It's called the gathering of irrelevant information. So we want one guest from the audience, you're going to have to go there, to answer these questions. Who's volunteer? Somebody? Come on, I don't bite, that's okay. Yeah, find somebody. Can we have the questions on the board, though?
Okay.
The presentation? What is your name? What is your quest? What is your favorite color? Anybody not laughing now doesn't know Monty Python. You're all in the black book for me. What languages do you speak? And what is your hobby? Go ahead.
I have to answer these questions. My name's Jabba. I'm born in Budapest, but I'm living in Cologne working as a bartender.
Let me stop you right there. When you said it's not as if he's thinking about what his quest is or what his favorite color is or where he lives in. That's not that. He's just sort of showing that he's organizing things here. That's part of the irrelevant information. We'll get more to that. Yeah, keep going.
My favorite color, I would say, is maybe something between green and blue.
Between green and blue?
Yeah, something.
Can I ask why that is, green and blue? Why between that and that?
I can't decide, so something
You're not
between.
sure?
Yeah.
You never thought about having a favorite color?
No.
Do you have a favorite food?
I would say seafood.
Do you have a favorite anything? This isn't stand-up. I'm not trying to mock him. All right,
Yeah,
never mind.
It always
Okay.
depends on the situation.
It's not really
you're in.
important favorite color. Like, we don't do that ever since, we
What?
moved on, grew up, whatever. What else? What languages do you speak?
English, German,
English and German? Anything else?
maybe few sentences Spain and a little word of Hungarian.
In Hungarian.
Hungarian, but
How did you
only few
study
words.
that?
I was born there.
All right. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you see, the questions are pretty straightforward. And you're supposed to be able to answer these questions one way or another. Like, what is your name? What is your, well, not everybody knows what their quest is, but kind of felt relevant. So if we treat these questions, if we ask our guests the questions and we treat them the same way we treat drinks, like, what will you have? I'll have one of these. You go over, you make the drink, you serve the drink. That's a very smooth experience, but there's very little hospitality involved. If I ask the question and instead try to hang on to every irrelevant bit of information the guest is giving me, if they're saying before they answer that question, it doesn't mean they don't know what their name is. It mostly means that they're a little anxious. They might be a little nervous from the way you're going to react to their answer. So you might want to figure out a way how to do that to ease their discomfort. When they say, I speak a little bit Hungarian. Now, the question was, what languages do you speak? And he answered perfectly. He said German and English. But he also mentioned, like, Kostek, but he also mentioned Hungarian. Perfect. How did you study that? How did that happen? How did you get a couple of sentences in Hungarian? What do you think about that conversation? Now, the allegedly irrelevant information, the things that the guest is choosing to add, is actually what allows us to have a conversation. The guest is sort of subconsciously telling us, look, I can tell you what my favorite color is, but I much prefer that we discuss something else. Now, as long as we listen and interact rather than just tell our stories, and we hang on to that irrelevant bits of information, we create a natural conversation about a very disarming, comforting effect. Remembering these details also allow the bartender to create a more profound emotional connection with their guests. It might seem like a lot of work to write down this kind of report, but let me remind you, we all spend hours learning cocktail recipes and cocktail techniques. Can we not spend the same time learning about our guests? I mean, do we serve cocktails or do we serve guests? Now, the report also ends with phrasing a personal message from the bartender to these guests to be sent the day after through the bar's phone number. Now, a personally phrased message shows that the visit is not seen as a one-time thing, but helps facilitate a continuation of the experience with the guests even after they have left the bar. Examples of such messages are, do we have that on the board though? Thank you. Hi Philip, it was a pleasure having you at Imperial yesterday. The drinks you really liked were the Malt Jenever Martinez and the Jenever Milk Punch, just so you'd remember for the next time you visit. Now, we know a lot of guests, especially when they're not bartenders, they don't remember the drinks that they had. And if they don't get that message with that just bits of what they liked, the next time they come by, it's going to be, so the bartender made me something very tasty, but I don't remember what it was. Can you make it again? And we already know we can't do that. But if they start from that and say, this is what I liked the last time, can I get something along these lines, then there's already a great connection between the bartender and the guest. Hi, Danny. It was great having you guys at the bar yesterday. Good luck with the third date. Let me know where you're headed, and I'll pull some strings and make sure they treat you extra well. So remember Danny from the story. And if he gets this message after a good experience at the bar, this is like, he's new to the city. He's already got someone he can rely on, and it's one of our bartenders. He's going to consult, he's going to come in, he's going to use us, help us. We're going to be his friends. Hi, Angus. Awesome seeing you last night. Sorry about that incident with the celery. We'll remember not to do that next time you visit. Looking forward to seeing you at BCB.
So creating long-lasting relationships between our bartenders and guests, between the bars and guests, is interrogating one aspect of the modern bars that we think could use more notice. It turns the bar into an influential community focal point, where stories are made, conversations are had, deep emotional connection is created between the bartenders and the guests. New discoveries, new adventures. It's not only about the bartender or the guest, it's about the community that we serve. It's not only about serving 40% for get juice in colorful manners, but in shaping and improving our guests' lives. And that's a pretty big thing. So we talked with you today about this project that we love to call Creative Hospitality. We talked a little bit about changing vibes, which was the first topic, how to better share experiences with our guests, about why stories matter, and how to use those stories to share and adapt the experiences for us to create long-lasting relationships with them. Now, this topic is much more bigger than us. It's much more bigger than these three topics. For example, the saliency of experience, how to get the guests to remember what they felt, what they had, and to get them to leave a higher tip than usual. There is Everybody's a VIP, which is about the way we treat our VIP guests and how to get each and every guest to feel just the same. There is the expectations game, feeding the fantasy, the power of introduction, touching tables, and many, many more.
However, we will not be touching on these. For one, we know that as soon as we start summarizing the talk, most of you will stop listening. The other one is we're short for time. So instead, we do have time for questions. Who has one? Yeah. You want to go there, or you want me to go there? Just give him, yeah. All right.
All right, come here. Where are you? There you go.
Hi, so my name's Steven, and thank you for that very great presentation. My question is, you talked about service being routine to make the process smooth, and hospitality being different from that. How do you keep, with all that routine in your hospitality, how do you keep it from becoming just service?
That's a great question. So, Stephen, right? So he asks, we talked about how service and hospitality are very different, and how service might be a routine or technical, where the hospitality might require a little more interaction. And he asks, how do we keep hospitality from becoming a routine? How do we keep hospitality from becoming a technical detail like the service? The beautiful aspect of it is that human interaction is never the same. It's never. It always has a little bit of changes, and whether you like it or not, hospitality is naturally going to be different. The bartender is continuously going to face new and exciting conversations with his guests, as long as he's willing to spark that. It cannot turn into something technical. This is hospitality. When it comes to layers of organization, we usually use technical, tactical, and strategic. And hospitality, like making somebody feel comfortable, because it changes all the time, because the changes are the people, and one person is not going to be the other. Hospitality is automatically tactical. Whenever you treat it as a technical thing, it's going to be felt that way. Now, how do we keep that away from that? We make sure that the staff is challenged. We make sure that the staff is engaged. We make sure that they're happy when they come to the shift. That's part of creative hospitality, and a lot of people are talking about it recently, is changing your priorities in the bar so that the staff are going to be more pleased and more happy, more satisfied, because when they are satisfied with their work and what they do, it shines through and the hospitality works. If somebody comes in and he's all grumbled and angry and pissed off at something, and he can't let that go during a shift, whether it's about the bar or not, they just cannot be hospitable. They don't want to be hospitable. All right? Does that answer the question? Perfect. Thank you. Anybody else?
Who else? Oh, great. We have a lot of questions here. That's great.
Hi. Thank you for your very interesting reports. What interests me is concerning the messaging, the guests, which I think is a really great idea. But how do you deal with data protection laws, which is a big issue at the moment in Austria? Data protection laws.
Hi, it's a good question. So we deal with data protection rules by that he already reserved a seat at the bar. And normally the guests are, especially in Israel, they're accustomed to get, I don't know, a generic message to rate the bar and to say how was their experience, if they had something good or bad they want to share with the owners or the manager. And so we already send those messages, and they already gave us their phone number. And we're just trying to do something which is, you know, it's friendly, it's for them. It's not like we're trying to get their phone's number like by force. So the automatic server at Imperial is truly important because it allows people that had good experiences to share it with the manager. And then, for example, I can understand and see whether somebody got a good experience from a bartender. But we all know that we're not focusing only about the good things. We are focusing mostly about the bad things that we get. And the feedback is the first rule for the guest not to write a review on TripAdvisor or Facebook. He could use his anger and write it to us, accepting something in return. He writes, I had a bad night last night. The service was horrible. I got, I don't know, I got ripped off in prices. I accept something. And then you know how to treat it. You know how to react in order for us to do something. It's not that he wrote it online and now all the world can see it, whether if it's right or wrong, and now it's out there. So the feedback is good.
Hi guys. So I really like the part about you talked when guests are arriving that like, hi, how are you? Are you coming more to the party, and what are we celebrating tonight and stuff like that? We often ran into this problem, like I guess many cocktail bars, because we have table service, that we actually know when the guest is coming in that we're fully booked. And we have this kind of thing where you can take a business card, you can book a table next time, blah, 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 but it's still kind of negative, kind of, yeah, we found the place, it's easy, but still like, now we want the experience, but, oh guys, hi, sorry, we don't have any more tables left. You can stand here and wait for, but it can take like 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, we don't know how long time it will be. Do you have some kind of experience in that area, how to lay it down easily, basically?
So to answer the question, how can we deal with our reservations list and entering guests when the place is bigger than just like 40 or 50 seats, the way we are handling? So because each and every place is different, I can't tell you exactly what I would have done if I was in your shoes. But I can tell you that people react good when they realize you're on their side. If you act friendly towards a guest and you tell him, for example, if I just showed up to your bar or restaurant and you don't have a room for me, which is okay, but instead of just saying me, we're fully booked tonight, try another night, and tell you what, tonight it's my last night in Berlin. So if I would go to a bar and they would tell me that this kind of answer, I wouldn't visit this bar again. Not because I don't want to, because I can't. It's my one and only night here. So I want them to be friendly. I want them to appreciate. I want you to understand that I chose your bar or your restaurant instead of all others. Be kind. Be friendly. I don't know, serve them water, for example. Give them the business card. Give them a free treat. ask them to stay for a little bit longer. I don't know. Find a way to be kind and friendly and to show them that you're on their side, and that will help, I think.
So this is actually a great topic that we talked about when we talked about why stories matter. Like, you get a lot of cases in Imperial where they walk in, the place is still empty. We just opened. They don't have a reservation. Everything is reserved. And the hostess is going to tell them, I'm sorry, I can't seat you. And they look at that and say, what do you mean? It's all empty here. Like, can't we sit here? We'll just sit for one drink. And it's like, I know you want to sit for one drink. I don't want you to sit for one drink. I know your plan might be one drink. I want you to have that drink. I want that drink to be so good and the service to be so good. You're going to stay for 4 or 5 more drinks after that. But to do that, we need to have room. Now, the thing is, what they're actually telling you, if you look at it, at the story behind the way the guests are talking, what they're actually telling you is, I don't understand. You're not talking in my language. Can you please talk in my language? And this magic happens when the hostess tells them, look, I really want to seat you guys, but everything is now reserved, and I have to reserve the seats for another 15 minutes until somebody is not here. But if you're willing to wait that 15 minutes, I'll get you some water for the outside. I'll get you the menu so you can get started, and we'll figure it out. Like, we'll do whatever I can, and you guys will be seated. Just bear with us. Just wait with us. Think about the difference of position, that identification that the guest is getting with the hostess or with the bar, just through that experience. It's the same thing. All right? You might not be able to sit them one way or another, it doesn't matter, and you're not going to be able to do anything about that. But the difference is, did they leave thinking you are on their side or against them? And that's just stories. If you get the story behind them, if you connect to the story, they'll identify with you. You'll be their friend even if they can't sit down. Anybody else?
Sounds great. Yeah, I think we have time for a couple more questions if anybody. Yeah, that's great. And just to follow up on that, what people tend to do in New York, anyways, they'll take your cell phone number and like send you to a bar down the street, and actually call you, which is great now too, right?
Perfect.
Thanks. Great talk. So you obviously own one venue. How would you relate that to multiple venues, or what do you see in terms of chains or big venues? What are they doing wrong, and how would you fix that? Like, it's not I think you're preaching a one size does not fit all. How do you relate that across the rest?
Well, you're going to have to figure out a way to write down your regulations or the way you want things to happen for guests on a hospitality level, on a tactical level. So this isn't technical. This isn't enough to just say, like, when it comes to a service, then it's very easy. If there's dirty dishes, you clean them. If there's empty glasses, you fill them or you take them away and you replace them. And you can pretty much, be consistent on that level at every place because it's very easy to teach. When it comes to hospitality, you just need to build up a training program that contains that. You just need to start discussing about what are the things that are positive and helpful to the kind of experience you're looking for, and what are the things that are happening that aren't. For example, have you made a reservation? You can put that down as a rule at the place. This is how we work. We do not ask, have you made a reservation at any one of our venues? And this works. This works wonders. Now, part of creative hospitality, my favorite part, was that changing behavior through fun and games. When you have a lot of venues and a large group of people, you want to lead them through that change. Finding fun, challenging ways to do that is, in fact, the best way to get them to instill it, to learn it. But there's no way around just teaching people about hospitality. Just talking about hospitality, in spite of the fact that it's a very complicated and difficult topic to better define. But you get the discussion started, you'll have results all across the chain.
Yeah, you can have the final word though, Guy.
So basically, we talked about everything we wanted. We've got so much more to share with all of you, and if you want, you've got here our email addresses, and we'll be happy to share those ideas with you. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a nice time here in BCB.
All right, John.